Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to be on this panel with these incredible people right here. And here we go. I gotta put my glasses on. Here we go. So, Latinas are a growing force throughout the United States. There are more than 30 million Latinas in the US, including immigrant Latinas who travel to live and work in the US. Latinas have increasing influence in business, in government, as leaders in civil society, and in philanthropy. So this conversation, we're gonna focus on the different ways that Latinas are leading, key issues that should be addressed, and on ways to collaborate across sectors to make change from the government to philanthropy and the nonprofit sector. We're gonna start with Carmen Perez. Yes. Miss Lady Justice on social media. All right, Carmen. By the way, that's my favorite name in the whole wide world. I always wanted to be Carmen Rodriguez. All right. Latinas are building power on the ground to address some of the key issues that they're facing. So what are some of the issues, and how are Latinas organizing to build power?
So first of all, what an honor it is to be with such phenomenal women on stage, and thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having us. So, you know, Latina women have always been at the forefront of movements. If you think about the movements in the Chicano movement or even the United Farm Workers, we have Dolores Huerta, we have Monica, who's, you know, leading the fight for justice for migrant women. And you have, you know, the first Mexican to lead the largest single-day protest in the history of the world sitting here with y'all.
Right there.
Right?
I was there.
I think, and when I think about the field across the country or even the world, Latinas are everywhere. You know, they're running Rock Nation. They're leading so many companies. They're doing so many phenomenal things, but oftentimes we are in the shadows.
Yeah.
Right? We are consistently in the shadows. We get brought in to clean up the messes of other people. You know, that's something I've consistently have said. And the way we're building power is by coming together to support one another. You said something so profound earlier, the fact that I know every actress, right, that is Latina says something about the fact that we need more representation.
Yeah.
And the fact that I know every potential movement leader says something, and it's not because there aren't leaders, everyone's a leader, but it's the fact that oftentimes opportunities for us are not afforded, and we're often the first ones. So the way we're building power is actually by coming together like Voltron and making sure that we make room and space for everyone.
Yes, I love that. Yes. Valeria. You have worked with NGOs and philanthropy and now in the government. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think exist for cross-sector collaboration, and what are some of the biggest opportunities?
Hey, I want to second Carmen's thank you to everybody that's here. It's just really an amazing opportunity to be here with all of you on the panel and with everybody that's here. So I joined the administration 2 years ago. I had never been in government. I had been doing community organizing for so long. Then I went into philanthropy. And when the opportunity kind of opened up, I was like, oh, do I really want to do this? You know, what's it like in there? And can I really stay true to my values and the work that I want to do? So I ended up in a role at the Office of Public Engagement. I'm in the Department of Labor, now under the leadership of Julie Su. Some of you may know her. She is amazing. Good, some accolades for her. And you know, this was an administration, the Biden-Harris administration, when on the first day, they signed the Equity EO, right? To advance racial equity across the federal government. And I have a leader at my department, Julie Su, who wants us to lean into and lift up vulnerable communities. So how do you go from saying those words to like actually making it happen? And I just feel so privileged that I brought in with me so many relationships, right? And that I've been able to kind of crosswalk, be a liaison, and bring people into the building. But bringing them into the building is like not enough.
Yeah.
You have to be kind of an interpreter, a translator, and set people up for success, right? So, when I go to people and we're like, hey, we got these advocates coming, they want X, Y, Z. They're like, oh, I don't know, and not all advocates are in the same space. Some of them will come into your space and they'll say, we want this, and this is your statutory authority to give us this, and this is how much it's gonna cost, and this is where you're gonna get the funding. And you're like, okay. And then some people are like, hey, I'm getting robbed at work. Hey, I'm facing gender-based violence and harassment, something that Monica brought people in just yesterday to talk about. I missed it because I was in Florida. But some people are more like articulating their needs. And I don't want people in my office to walk away after that meeting and be like, well, we can't do anything about that. So it just takes like a lot of prep work to get people to think expansively and to set us up both like internally to really be able to listen, and then really set up the stakeholders and be like, hey, maybe you want to say it in X, Y, Z way. Well, of course, respecting their own power and their own process, but kind of bringing the two together. So yeah, so it's been an experience, it's been a privilege, and getting better at it every day.
Yeah. Monica, why is it important to support and build power as well as advance policy strategies with and for Latinas? Why is it important to use both strategies at the same time?
Hi, everybody. Hi. First, much gratitude, and I want to give a lot of love and gratitude to Justina for coming here to be with us. We all love
I'm sweating
her.
being up here with all these brilliant women. I just pretend sometimes.
We love Justina. We love all that she's doing and the ways that she's leading, and it's just a true honor to be up here with all of you. And let's just talk about the fact that, as Carmen said, we know that we all have power. And our community, in Latinas in particular, in Hollywood and otherwise, we have been typecast. And the way that we have been typecast in society, either literally or figuratively, has told the world that we don't have power. Instead of talking about farm worker women and domestic workers and others as the leaders in this nation who are feeding us and caring for us and caring for our children and making it possible for us to actually literally live, we have been typecast so that people think of us as people who are powerless, who are quote unquote voiceless, who are in more need than people who give so much. And so I start there because when we talk about power building, we have to understand that we as advocates and activists and everyday people who are just getting up every morning trying to do good in the world, we're not giving anybody the power. Our job is to make way so that everyone can use our power, right? Our job is to uplift people so that they can be heard and seen, and so that people can actually value everyone and their power. And I say that in this room in particular because I know that some of you in your portfolios, you're funding power building. And I think it is really important for us to understand that, when people talk about kind of being in charge of empowering people or giving people the tools to be powerful, like we need to undo that language because it's actually harmful and it's undermining the power that we as people, including the 30 million Latinas across this country, already yield. And when it comes to policy, every single day, name the issue and we're living it, we're experiencing it, we're confronting it, we're overcoming it, we're challenging it. And we are called upon every day in the process of surviving and attempting to thrive to actually do the work that is required to change things, right? Like we can't just get up and talk about the fact that we're not being paid equally. We have to get up, we have to talk about that we're not being paid equally, we have to fight against not being paid equally, we have to explain to people why we should be paid equally. Like all of that's work that we're doing every single day, and it's across every single issue area because the way we show up in the world requires that. And we can't pick and choose when we're going to decide to use our power to challenge the policies that are failing us or the policies that have been deliberately written to exploit and keep us down. And so when do we do the power building and the policy change? It has to be constant and it has to be concurrent and it has to be funded in that way.
It's amazing to me how much Hollywood is just it's the same. It's the same everywhere. You know, it's and a lot of us. I mean, I'm taking it off for a second, but are nervous to constantly to put it out there because they're scared they're not going to get another job. You know what I mean? They're scared that somebody's going to say something and that somebody's not going to watch your show. You know, when I was doing One Day at a Time, I can't tell you all the all the stuff that came towards me. You know, it was just really ugly, all the stuff. You know, and it was like when I did that MSNBC thing, you know, all the insults and so sometimes it gets so hard, you get so scared. So I'm so grateful for all of you up here because I've been scared sometimes. You know, I'm like, oh God, what am I going to talk about this? Am I going to talk about abortion? Am I going to talk about what are they going to say to me? Are they going to stop watching my show? You know, is Amazon going to get mad at me? It's all of these things that that I guess affect every single one of us. So anyway, I'm very proud of all you guys up here. All right, Tania. You have worked with civil society organizations in Latin America. What are some of the most impactful strategies that you've been seeing used in Latin America, and how are some of those collaborations crossing borders to advance justice for migrant women?
Well, hello everyone. I am super grateful for being here. I'm really privileged, you know, like I'm all the time like, what am I doing here with this woman? Like, you know, like, oh, okay. I have to say something super smart and I do not have it, you know, like, but thank you for this opportunity to, you know, share the space, and thank you for still be here listening to whatever we have to say. I know they have to say a lot. I'm not really sure I have to, but okay. Yeah, I have 20 years working in human rights, more or less. And 10 of those years, I passed working in Fondation, a feminist fund back in Mexico that is like, you know, mobilizing resources for grassroots organizations in Mexico and beyond. And what I have learned, like these years with Fondation and before, I have a lot of things to share around collaboration, the power of collaboration, the things that maybe we do not see, but that they are there, you know? The movements that are vibrant, that are doing everything they can, putting their, you know, all these activists putting their bodies in the front lines, doing whatever is possible to help others, you know? And these collectives are so strong, you know? It's like, I always say, money is the less important thing when we are talking about change in the world. You know, you need legitimacy, you need strength, you need your sisters, you need to be committed. And those things are not about money. Those things are about humanity, you know? And so for me, first of all, I had like something prepared here, but you know, like the thing is, for me, and the most important learning that I have is that the movements are there. The necessities of the movements are there. We as donors, now I have another hat, the only thing we have to do is to open our eyes and our ears, you know? And instead of putting an agenda, follow the agenda of the movements that are there. And something super important is that, you know, like I have been receiving when I was in the side of women's funds and activism, I still feel that I am an activist and I will do my job as activist in the side of the donors because I really think that resourcing the movements and go for movement building, and I'm like, it's resonating with me, this, you said power building, but the movements are built, you know, are there. The only thing is that maybe we can help a little if we can resource them in the way they need to, without agendas, in general support, thinking in the long term. And I just want to put like 2 examples that speaks about collaboration And I would say, and I would not describe them because you know them very, very well, the green wave. The green wave painted us all, and I think all the world, in green. You know, suddenly it began in Argentina. And the first time that they tried, I will not say they failed. The congressman failed to them. But, you know, the bill was not passed. But they still used the green scarf. And they made us to use the green scarf all over Latin America. And even here, I know here you were using also the green scarf. And last week, and I really can say, because of this vibrant movement with that green scarf, last week in Mexico, we finally achieved to decriminalize abortion, to get abortion out of the culture.
Amazing. It's amazing.
And what I want to say is that these kind of things didn't come because the donors were there financing.
Right.
You know, if there are collectives that they weren't resourced by donors, were the Argentinians. You know, they didn't receive resources to be and to do all the things they did, and they made a global movement. But okay, maybe they are not here. The other example that I have is the Me Too movement, and it began here, you know? And the Me Too movement also painted all our walls, all our social media with hashtags and denounces. And I have to say that at least in Mexico, and I know it by experience, by living in my country, we have a lot of people, you know, that have been indicated as aggressors that have to leave the country because they have a denounce, and if they return, they will have a trial. Thanks, Me Too. You also helped us to do that. And you know, that's collaboration. And the collaboration is organic. And what I want to say here is that those examples, the thing that are showing to us is that activism speaks to each other, that feminism is without borders, and that it is not about like making a policy to see each other outside of the country. It is happening. And so what we donors have to do is to resource that. Because, you know, like we really need each other to make things happen, and so make the things that the changes that we need and we want to see in the world. And so, well, I do not know if I answered the question, but
did.
That was
You did. This is for Carmen and Monica. So the Latinx community has been historically underfunded in the U.S. Why is it critical for philanthropy to fund Latina-led organizations?
I think it's important to understand Chicana feminism and how Latinas lead. We are a bridge from inception. You know, we are the interpreters of our families. Yeah. We are the bridge between the youth and the elders. We are intersectional individuals, right? We have to navigate from, you know, speaking the oppressor's language, you know, to colonization, all these things that have happened to us that have actually shaped who we are. And so when you think about supporting Latina leadership, what we will do is we will be the person that will bring everybody along. That's what we've demonstrated all along. You know, it's kind of like when everybody comes together to put their little quarters to buy that one movie ticket, and then you go to the back and you open the door and you let all your little friends in. That's what Latina leadership is.
Yes, I love that.
We bring everybody along. And I'll give you an example. When we were organizing the Women's March, you know, we were having to teach the white women in the room about intersectionality. Even though Kimberly Crenshaw, let's give it up for Black feminists who have really paved the way for Latinas and for Chicana feminists. You know, I owe it to so many of you because I am here because of what you all sacrificed for me to actually be here. But I will say, as a Chicana feminist, I pride myself with that. I know I am a bridge. I am the bridge keeper. And it was important for us to move beyond one issue silo, right? That's what they do to us. They also do that when it comes to our leadership. You guys only work on one issue, immigration reform. Well, you know what? No, we're not a monolith. Everything impacts us, the environment, criminal justice. We're being shackled while we're giving birth, in the prisons. So we created the unity principles, and the unity principles brought women from all these different issue areas: climate change, trans women, gender, non-binary peoples, food justice, to look at their issue and how it intersected through a gender lens. And that's how we got the most radical platform, so that all women could see themselves in the movement. But that's what Chicanas and Latinas do. We bring everybody in. And when we do that, there are moments in which we lose ourselves because we're so wanting to bring everybody in the door that we forget to actually get a seat for us at the movie theater, right after we buy the ticket. We forget, and it's so important to fund us, because of the fact that, one, we are the first. I am leading a legacy organization for Harry Belafonte, who was a confidant to Dr. King. I am Chicana, and I am the first to lead a legacy organization in that way. And if you don't fund me, then you don't fund the rest of the young people that are being cultivated by my leadership, by the way in which I lead, because there is a responsibility that we have when you are the first. When you are the first to go to college, you got to make sure that you make room for all your nieces and nephews to go to college too. When you are the first to drive, you're then taking your 13-year-old little brother to go drive in the parking lot too. We are the first, and we're always bringing everybody along. And so it's important for us to be funded, and not just in the sense of like organizationally, but mentally, spiritually, in every which way that you could fund our leadership.
Carmen said it all. I want to pause for a second and give some love. Carmen and I are co-founders of Poderistas, and I want to give some love to the other 8 co-founders of Poderistas, which is a national organization supporting and uplifting Latinas across this country. So I wanted to give some love there. But I think most of you in the room know the data point the Hispanics in Philanthropy published that said that less than 1% of all funding dollars are invested in our community. That's not even Latina-led organizations, that's just in the Latinx community. We know that number dipped during the pandemic, despite the fact that our community, among so many others, needed more support, not less. And when I think about what it means to fund Latina-led organizations, I think much to Carmen's point, and maybe some of you here in this room resonate with this. First of all, we know how to do it, right? Like, we've been planning the quinceañeras, we've been planning all the things for all the years, all the time, and what we do is we bring it, like, who's gonna bring the rice, and who's gonna bring the beans, and who's gonna bring the thing, and so collective action is what we do by nature. Yeah. That is our culture, that is part of who we are, and we see that in the way that we lead, we see that in the way that we're building organizations, but I think that what is not different about our community is that Latinas have been leading organizations and leading movements forever and ever and ever, but our leadership has been made invisible.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so, for too long, I'd go to different kinds of movement meetings, and even though there would be Latinas in the room who were there to provide all kinds of leadership, wise suggestions, wise counsel, et cetera, when it came time to decide who would be uplifted as the leaders in the room, my tias, my mom, my grandma, we would be sent back to the kitchen to serve the rice and the beans and the tortillas, right? But not being uplifted in the way it needed to happen. And thankfully, I think that's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And if we want to see change accelerate in and for our communities, we need to first of all call that out, because it's a real problem, and it's holding us all back. It's not just holding our community back, it's holding this country back. And in order for that to happen, that means trust-based philanthropy is critical. Carmen and I have been we're both from the farm worker community. Mm. We've been in movement since we were 14, 15 years old. Like, we lived the movements that we're from. And you don't know how many times people like us are questioned about whether we really know what we're talking about, or do we really know what we're doing, or is there someone else who can validate that we have enough experience to be able to make a good strategy? And you know what? The world is burning all around us. People just have to believe in us. And they have to believe in every other single Latina leader across this country who's getting up every single day with the commitment to not just save herself, but to save all of us.
Yes.
Yes. I want you to think about, when you think about a Latina leader, who do you think about? Who's a person that you think? Dolores Huerta. There's a lot of us that are Dolores Huertas and our names don't get said in public. And she's in her 90s. She's in her 90s. Could you imagine how invisible we are who've been in this field? I've been in it for 29 years. And I've done some really big stuff. But the person that we think about, and let's give all praise to Dolores Huerta, and we should. And we should also say, Monica Ramirez, Carmen Perez, America Ferrera, Justina, everybody, right? I wanted to say that because in the Black community, I could name a bunch of leaders. Tamika Mallory, Reverend Al Sharpton, Harry Belafonte, a bunch of leaders. But as Latinas, we don't get that recognition. So that's a question I want you to ask yourself is, how are you gonna support a Latina leader? The second thing I want you to think about is philanthropy and how you fund. I worked for Harry Belafonte, who used to sell out concerts and take the money he got from the concert and take it to the Delta to Dr. King and SNCC and SCLC. And he didn't say, bring me back a report and metrics of success. He said, I'm gonna go and sell out this concert, and I want you to be great, Dr. King. I want you to be great, John Lewis, Diane Nash, right? And what happens is I recently met with a woman Latina president who's in philanthropy, and she said, funding was love for the people. It's love for the people. And she wants to do away with this false dichotomy of the deserving and non-deserving. And what we get told every single day by philanthropy is that we are the non-deserving. Yeah. That's another conversation, a panel, but I just wanted to say that. So I just want you to think about those things, and I welcome you to welcome us into the conversations when you're thinking about funding, when you're thinking about building portfolios or issues. We are in building power, and how do you build that portfolio? Invite us to the table with you. We are more than happy to take your call and build with you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh. Valeria, dígame, nena. What is the role for the government, including from a foreign policy perspective, to assist to win justice and provide resources to address some of the pressing issues impacting Latinas, Latinx, Latinx, including wage theft, unequal pay, and other matters?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll lean into issues around wage theft a little bit and health and safety in communities in the U.S. mainly. If I think of my role as kind of an interpreter and a crosswalker and bringing people in and having that liaison role, the community groups are that times 100, because they are the ones that are doing the organizing every single day and raising their voices and making the policy asks. Without those asks, when you come into an administration, you get a real sense of how much there is to do. And the time is limited. You don't know if you're gonna get another 4 years. And how do things rise to a priority is like a very sticky thing that I'm seeing in terms of how the sausage gets made internally, right? And I think, I was telling Elizabeth this when I was prepping for this. I think in the foundation world, when I was there before in the funder world, it was like, okay, well, do we fund the DC advocates that are gonna have everything laid out in their reports and this and that? Or do we find the community groups and help them put together the report? We need everybody in the halls of government, everybody. from the community group to like the advocacy organization to everybody in between, and it makes a huge difference. Sorry, I kind of forgot what I was going with this.
Happens to me all the time.
The community groups, and yeah, I got it. I brought it back. But I just feel so passionate about that because I just open the doors for so many people and really just like make sure that we are prepared to hear from every single person that needs to be heard, particularly Latino groups. But in terms of the wage theft and the health and safety, so I support a lot of the travel for Acting Secretary Sue, and she's really into like meeting with community groups. Just yesterday, and one of our kind of engagement policies is kind of like, I don't know if anybody goes camping, but when you go to a campsite, they tell you to leave it in a better condition than you found it, okay? So if you're gonna travel as an administration, you cannot just show up and do your photo op and say, peace, see you later, no. Like, you have to understand what do they want to get out of the visit, right? What is the issue that they're pushing, and leave that community and have them leverage your presence, and for you to be okay that they're leveraging you as well, right? It's not a one-way thing where they're just going to pose with you for a picture. So, so for example, we had this community group that we are supposed to visit in Mississippi where there's been incredible abuses in the poultry industry. Mm-hmm. Including a recent death, and just the objectionable conditions that people face in those industries. And the secretary was really careful in her message. We ended up having to send a video message because like her schedule changed and you know, we weren't able to go. And traditionally, when you do these video messages, it's like, I'm here for you, you know, I'm here to help you. But she was like, you know, I had done so much prep work with the organizers, and they told me very clearly, there's a distrust of government, right? When you guys show up to do an investigation, to check out the health and safety, people don't know OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, from immigration, right? And their employers, and I've heard this just yesterday in Miami when I was visiting with farm workers as well, when OSHA comes into the plant nurseries, some employers will say, immigration's here, get out. And then they can't talk to our investigators, right? So we need those community groups as the trusted voice, right? So when we were preparing this video, we had to be really careful. We couldn't just say, like, come work with us. We had to say, queremos ganar su confianza. Sabemos que no confían en nosotros, right? And she does it in Spanish, too. Yeah, I prep her, but she does it in Spanish, right? So that's still like was one quick very important message. And then, the other thing we did very carefully is that, you know, in talking to the organizers several times, they explained sort of the fear of retaliation. And the fear among communities of immigration consequences. So I was very careful with the secretary to explain to her that any kind of conversation that we have with this community, we have to lay out specifically how we're protecting them and how if they come forward with a case and if they collaborate in an investigation, we're gonna use this what we call the prosecutorial discretion process, which is like this sort of fancy, wonky thing, and just breaking it down so that people feel comfortable. Yeah, so I just feel like as we engage to support communities, we have to understand that they need to leverage us at the same time for the campaigns that they're moving forward, that they have power, to your point, and really be partners with them, and not just act like we're doing a service for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tania. Let's talk about philanthropy. All right, philanthropy is a new body of work in Latin America. What lessons can be learned from the United States, and what learnings can be shared with philanthropy in the U.S. about meeting the needs of migrant women from Latin America? And why must we both work together?
Well, I will not say that it is a new model in Latin America. I think philanthropy has existed in Latin America for a long time. Philanthropy as a seat, you know, like maybe the model of local philanthropy is really bad. It's like charity more than human rights framework. And I think there's a lot that local philanthropy can learn from philanthropists here in the US and in Europe also. I think that something that it is important to notice is that the funding for groups and human rights, journalists, etc., for Latin America is coming from the global north. That's like true, you know? I think when I was in Fondo Semillas, more than 80% of the funding that we mobilized was from the global north, you know? And this is important because for Latin America, it has, and I think that it has been repeated in this forum a lot of times, how the funding comes and goes because, you know, because the agendas of the donors changes, because the markets, the capital, or maybe there are other countries that will, maybe show them more impacts. And so this is super harmful. This is super harmful because then you have a region that has been funded and suddenly it doesn't have anything. And it's super harmful. This also had helped us to know that we do not have anything for granted. Anything. And maybe that's something that have made us to be, I will not say resilient because I don't like the word, but resistant, you know? And so we have these rights, but we know that they can be taken away, so we continue organizing, we continue doing things, and so we are there. But the thing is that it is not fair and it is not good, and to take away funding as if, if it is a fairy, okay, I put my money, I get out my money, no. So it is not good, and the donors that have stayed with us in the region are the more progressive ones, and there's a lot to be grateful with them, but also to still asking to them, because they also think that it is about restorative justice. It is not because they are good people. It is because, we all have to deal with this mess because the world is one and it is for all and it is super fucked and it's going to hell. That's the reality. So what I think is, in my grandfather was from Panama, and a lot of things have happened in Panama, but he used to tell me that in the worst moments, they used to survive because they did in the neighborhood what they called la olla común, the common bowl.
Olla.
Yeah.
Community olla.
Exactly, the pot.
Así mismo.
And so it is part of the culture to have this olla común, in which in the most difficult moments, everyone gets out of their homes and bring whatever they have. And they put it there with water, and we'll be eating of that, and it will be good, It happened in the earthquakes. It happened with the hurricanes. It happens every time, And now we have to see that globally we need an olla común, Because, the global warming, all the things that are happening because of everything will need for us to create an olla común. And that's it. And this is with philanthropy, this is with public policy, this is with everything, and we have to know that. In terms, I only want to say something super quickly because I know that
We're good.
We're good, okay.
Ya terminamos. Puede hablar todo lo que quiere.
In terms of migration, I think, and I want to focus on this, I have talked about abortion, in the Me Too movement, and all these things are crossing our bodies, the women bodies all over our territories, but migration also. And I have to say, in the pandemic, I listened to a lot of donors talking about how worried they were because of violence against women and children, the domestic violence that increased a lot. I think it increased, but the thing is, was more visible, you know? And they were super concerned, as well as with the migration issues, that right now we should all be concerned. You know, like 3 days ago, I was telling Monica, the news in my country was that we have 100,000 people in the southern border waiting to get into the country, to get here. You know, this is something that it is affecting us and you and Central America and South America and other parts of the world, because the people that it is getting in, it is not only from Honduras, from Guatemala, they are from Venezuela, they are from Haiti, they are also from Africa. They are crossing our territory to get here for all the parts of the world, a lot of countries. So this is why I'm telling you that this is one world, and we all have to be concerned about what is happening here, what is happening there, what is happening in Europe, what is happening in Asia, what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening in Palestine, because that affects us all. And we have to acknowledge that there is people outside our borders, and they are suffering, and they are being traumatized. Unfortunately, I have to say, and you know, the organized crime in my country is disappearing people. You know, it's killing them, and it's disappearing them. And some migrants are survivors, but have lived that. And they are coming here, traumatized, you know? And we owe them. We owe them, because we are human and they are human. We have to respond. And the thing that I wanted to say is, I can see concern. I can see that people is worried, but I don't see the funding.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so few donors are daring to fund those issues. So few. And so the thing is, like, I will not ask you to make the case. The case is there, you know? What I am asking my colleagues is to open their eyes. And we have to, you know, like there's something important with migration. Migration and to move, it's a human impulse, you know? And if you accompany that human impulse with fear, with necessity, with the fundamental necessity to be secure and secure the lives of yourself and your beloved ones, you will be unstoppable. You can put 1 million walls. Those 1 million walls will be passed, maybe in the ground. We have done that, you know? Yeah? No. It doesn't function. We have to seek other solutions, you know? And we have to seek solutions that are human, that dignifies life, and that, yeah, put in the center life, you know? Because we are human, and we are sharing the world. And so, well, I do not know. The only thing I can say is, like, let's do it together. Yeah. Let's do it together.
Let's get some funding. Bueno, anybody have anything else to say? Look at us, we're here. Yeah.
I think for me, I just want to remind folks that I think, you know, when we're thinking about supporting Latina leadership, is that we've made miracles happen with rice and beans.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's very similar to the way in which Monica was talking, is like you have, you know, the rice, you have the chicken, you have the carrots. Let's, you know, make food, let's make soup, and let's all get fed. A lot of the initiatives that we've organized, and I'll talk about the Gathering for Justice, has been done because our greatest asset is our human asset. Yeah. We've not had the investment by Philanthropy to actually do long-term planning and strategy, because a lot of what we're responding to is trauma on a daily basis. At this moment, there is a woman by the name of Rosa Jimenez who served 17 years out of a 99-year sentence for a crime she didn't commit. She was just exonerated last August. She was in my office 2 days ago because me and other Latina women are coming together to tell her story so that she could get a kidney. She lost her life to being incarcerated for a crime she didn't commit. She lost her 2 children, and now she's fighting for her life. And so what we do is we come together, we build collective power. We do multicultural coalition building. And those are things that right now philanthropy is trying to invest in, and we actually do it naturally. I don't have a grant that says you can help Rosa Jimenez get a kidney. I don't have one. But what I do have is I have heart, and I have other people who are willing to support me. And so when you all are thinking about investing in Latina leadership, remember the Carmen Perez's, the Monica Ramirez's, the women on this panel. Remember everybody who is actually trying to make a difference in the world, because this is not just about my livelihood. I'm tired. I've been in this for 29 years. I want to take a nap. I'm trying to pass the baton. You know, I used to think that this was a marathon. What I realized is actually a relay. And it's important for us to cultivate the younger generation. And that's why I say our greatest asset is our human asset. Because when the resources have run out, when there's no grants coming in and people are saying you don't know how to organize or you don't know what racial justice is and that's all you've been doing all your life. Because according to philanthropy, it's very different than what we do on the ground, right? Very different. I call my people and my people show up. And so, again, it's just a reminder that it's important to invest in Latina leadership. We're always going to show up if there's money or not, but we do need the money. And please call on us to be thought leaders, thought partners with you, because we need that thought partnership too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And before we wrap, I just want to talk a little bit about narrative, and just want to bring you into this conversation too, because you're the expert here on narrative. But I don't think we can leave here without talking about narrative, because first of all, as you know, we need the narrative around our community to change urgently. The El Paso massacre happened because of a narrative about our community that was false. And we can name every other mass tragedy that has happened and tragedies that have happened of all other sorts against our community, because there's a narrative in this country that we are takers. People talk about us taking jobs, they talk about us taking resources, they talk about us taking benefits, they talk about us taking all sorts of things. And that narrative has infected this nation and has put our lives in danger. Yeah. And the truth is that we are givers. We give jobs, we give opportunities, we give creativity, we give hope, we give so much. And unless we work together to change the narrative about who we are as a people and all of the ways that we lead and all of the ways that we give, there will continue to be a mark on our backs. And so that is part of what also needs to be funded, because we can organize like we do, we can push for policy change like we do, we can get great folks in the administration advocating us like we have now. You know, we can move those numbers from 1% of Latinas who are attorneys in this country, 1% of us, I think, are in philanthropy, like the percents are so low. We can lift all those numbers up. But if we don't change the narrative about who we are as a community, then all of the threats that we're talking about are going to continue to exist. And so, Hermana, I want you to talk a little bit about your work in narrative, because you are representing us. And I want them to, I know she's like, no one said I was going to have to. But you have been representing us for so long, and I just want to give you space to share what you need from this room and what you need from all of us to support you as you tell our stories.
I have what I need from this room, and I'm so appreciative of all the support I get from our community. The problem is the people on the other side, you know? It's like they'll give an opportunity for a show. They'll make a pilot. I don't know if you guys know what a pilot is. It's the first episode, and sometimes you never see it. And they'll say, we did that, but then they'll never pick up the show. You know, because I'll tell you one quick story because I want Valeria to finish. She wanted to say something. When I did a pilot, I think it was 1990 something. I was like 25 years old. It was called I Love Lupe. And it was hilarious. It was so good. I was playing another Cuban called Lupe, which is amazing because then 20 years later. And I remember it tested so well because they show it to people. It tested. Everybody loved it. It didn't get picked up. Then the president of Castle Rock at that time called me at my place and said, Justina, it's so great. I want to talk to you about your next project. We didn't pick this up because we don't think America's ready for a Latin family. And I was so young, I thought, oh, okay, yeah. And that's the narrative that was pushed on me. The narrative that they're not ready for me, that they're not ready for us, that, you know, or that there's only so many of us. I mean, Carmen and I were talking about this. She's like, oh, thank you so much for everything that you do. I'm happy to see all these Latina faces. I said, yeah, Carmen, but you know every single one of them. And that's messed up, that you know every single one of us. You know what I mean? That you can count it on two hands of the women that are, you know. So I'm also always trying to pass the baton to the generation after me, to all of these young, incredible talent coming after me. I want to bring them in the room too. But I think we do our part. They make us feel that we're not doing our part, but we do it. They're the ones that have to be responsible. Okay, mi amor.
I do not want to cut you short, so if you want to keep going.
I think I'd be a good example.
It's just this thought of the relay race and passing the baton. It just had me thinking a little bit too about, you know, I talked about when you get into an administration, there's just so much volume and so much happening and everything is so fast. But the other part of that in government is the career staff. Right? And they are there through and through any administration. And they see it all. And you know, there's so many committed civil servants. For the Department of Labor, we didn't have the funding or support to do the wage theft cases. We didn't have the funding and support to investigate all these labor violations. And guess what? If you know your community, you're going to be a better investigator. If you are somebody that is justice-minded, you're going to go into those communities and talk to somebody with compassion about child labor issues and not judge them, you know, around these issues, right? You're going to understand that, you know, we just had a meeting yesterday with the secretary, and she's incredible, and people feel very open. And she was crying, I was crying, the people there were crying. But not everything was said even, because when we were leaving, one of the ladies came up to me and told me that she had also been sexually harassed and just like almost assaulted on the job. And she hadn't wanted to say that in front of everybody, but she sought me out because she wanted me to know, and she wanted me to bring that. So I just kind of like, you know, we're in the political job, but like the civil servants, like the community, we also just need to get Latinx people, Black people, other communities into those jobs just to keep the work going. Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Okay, we did it. We did it. I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, being on this panel with you brilliant women. And thank you for your leadership, your hard work. And come on, give us some money. We're at the funding. We got things to do, people.